Don't slack off, you useless wife. Don't use morning sickness as an excuse. My husband, looking down on me, was yelling with spittle flying. I was lying on the couch, trying to rest, and struggled to stand up. But as soon as I did, nausea surged from my stomach to my throat, and I covered my mouth with my palm. I stroked my swollen belly, trying to soothe it, but the nausea didn't subside at all. A senior colleague told me, even with morning sickness, you can still cook and clean. Besides, it's strange that you still have morning sickness with such a big belly. His words gave me a headache all over again. Morning sickness typically begins in the early stages of pregnancy and usually settles down by second trimester. However, about 20% of women, like me, continue to suffer from it even after that. My husband has been directly told this by the doctor. Yet, he still treats me as a useless wife, slacking off in household chores using morning sickness as an excuse. You believe your colleague's words over the doctor's, over watching me suffer right in front of your eyes. As I felt overwhelmed by helplessness, my husband, who was looking down on me, suddenly fell silent and walked behind the couch where I was lying. Then he started kicking my back, trying to knock me off the couch. Stop it. It hurts, please stop. Dull thuds echoed from my back. If I fell off the couch, my belly would hit the floor. If I turned around, his kicks might hit my belly directly. As I panicked, not knowing what to do, suddenly a woman's voice rang out. Are you okay? The woman, an experienced mom I had recently become friends with, gently touched my back and slowly helped me up. As I felt the warmth of her hands, tears welled up in my eyes. Looking up at her, I saw my husband behind her, shaking all over and as pale as I've ever seen him. I'm Emily, 29 years old and currently pregnant. I work for a cosmetics company, but I'm on early maternity leave. This is because I've been suffering from morning sickness for almost the entire pregnancy. While many people say morning sickness only occurs in the early stages, I'm still struggling with it in the late stages of pregnancy. I haven't gained weight, and my health isn't great. I've even discussed hospitalization with my doctor. While it's not common, there are a certain number of women who go through this. Since the early stages of my pregnancy, I've often been unable to manage household chores. There's nothing I can do to stop the morning sickness, but my husband has been growing increasingly frustrated with me. My husband is Michael. 2 years older, and we went to same high school. We met in high school, where I was the manager of the soccer team. We didn't talk much back then. We started dating after a soccer team alumni gathering. After dating for about 2.5 years, we got married when I was 26. I didn't know much about him until we started dating, but I remember thinking he was a genuinely straightforward person. That was evident during a weekend date at a shopping mall near a toy store. There was a play area for kids, and some toys were laid out. The children playing there all seemed happy, each finding their favorite toy to play with. I thought to myself that placing these samples might lead to sales, and it's also a good way for the store to find out what interests children, making it effective from a marketing standpoint. Hey, that's a toy from my company. He works at a toy manufacturer, and some of the toys in that area were from his company. It feels good to see them play happily. It makes me feel like it was worth making them. Michael's expression was one of happiness as he watched the children play with the toys. I never thought he would change so much after I got pregnant and started having morning sickness. I was impressed by his dedication to his job. I had thought that because Michael was such a person, there would be no worries even after having a child. But once I got pregnant and the morning sickness began, Michael started to frown. The severity of my morning sickness made it impossible to lead a normal life. I couldn't even sleep properly. I often had to get off the train during my commute due to nausea and started experiencing symptoms similar to anemia. Household chores became particularly difficult, moving around for cleaning was painful, and cooking was impossible due to constant nausea. Since I used to do most of the chores, naturally, our daily life was affected. That's when Michael started to scorn me as if he had become a different person. It's really unpleasant to see your face like you're about to throw up. Can't you try to act a bit more cheerful, even if you're feeling sick? I'm not sick, so you should at least manage to serve meals. Are you trying to starve me? What is this? Did you really clean? He would express his annoyance with me every day. It was so unreasonable that I wanted to have a proper discussion about it, but my morning sickness was so bad that I couldn't even talk properly. Just sitting up made me feel sick, and talking triggered nausea. When that happened, Michael would sigh heavily and say, "Don't waste my time." When I asked why he would say such things to me, pregnant with his child, he replied, "A colleague at work said so." Who's this person? A colleague at work. He's got a wife and kids, so he's convincing. And what did he say? That morning sickness is just an excuse to slack off. I couldn't believe a man who had never been pregnant, especially one whose wife had given birth, would say such a thing. I wanted to say that, but my condition reached its limit, and the conversation ended. As I lay down on the sofa, unable to bear it any longer, Michael remarked, "It must be nice to be pregnant and able to sleep all day," and left. Why did Michael believe this guy's words? I wondered if his wife was really okay. It was someone else's business, but I was worried. Anyway, I felt it was dangerous to continue like this until delivery. The next prenatal checkup is on Saturday. Come with me. What? On my day off? You didn't even attend the parenting classes. The doctor said it's important for husbands to hear some things, so he wants you to come. My colleague said he never went to any of that. Well, at my clinic, I'm about the only one whose husband doesn't accompany her. Sounds like a hassle. Michael, who cares about his image, wouldn't like to be seen as the only unconcerned husband. The doctor really had said, it would be good if your husband could come once, so hopefully, he would say something. I hoped this would be an opportunity for Michael to change his perspective. On Saturday, as planned, I got Michael to accompany me to the prenatal checkup. The ultrasound showed the baby was a bit smaller than average, but growing healthily. I felt greatly relieved by that information. Still can't eat much? Right, I feel nauseous. During the consultation with the doctor, Michael sat next to me. You're anemic too. Just take it easy. Yes, the morning sickness hasn't stopped. As your belly gets bigger, you might still feel sick. Will it continue until delivery? Some women do experience it until the last month. Is that so? I was only about 3 weeks away from my due date. The thought of feeling even worse was unbearable. Michael, please help your wife stay as rested as possible. The doctor turned to Michael and said. It was a reasonable request from a doctor to a pregnant woman's family. But unbelievably, Michael scoffed. Well, I have work, too. Morning sickness varies from person to person, right? Yes, but your wife's is particularly severe. The doctor calmly replied, but he seemed to have quickly understood what type of spouse Michael was. Usually very gentle, the doctor firmly corrected Michael. Have you ever had a hangover? A little, maybe. Your wife is experiencing something many times worse than that hangover, and it lasts all day. Really, like a hangover? Just sitting up makes her feel sick. Plus, she's a bit anemic, so she feels even worse. Huh. The cervical length is also short. To protect the baby, she needs to rest. The doctor earnestly explained my situation, but Michael just gave non-committal responses and even muttered. Moreover, he murmured quietly, almost inaudibly to the doctor, "My colleague said I don't need to listen to this." Looking back, Michael's behavior started changing around the time my pregnancy was confirmed. He often became grumpy, complaining about things like a pile of Uniron shirts, meaning he couldn't wear what he wanted, or that I hadn't collected the mail from the mailbox, leaving it untouched. It seems that whatever his colleague at work told him influenced him to act this way. Certainly, I had become unable to do things I used to, which might have caused inconvenience and dissatisfaction for Michael. However, it's also true that despite both of us working, I had a greater share of household responsibilities. Even when I repeatedly asked for his cooperation because I was feeling unwell, he would just say, pregnancy isn't an illness, so don't slack off. I never thought he was like this before the pregnancy. He seemed like a completely different person from the Michael I knew since high school. Please take care not to overdo. The doctor emphasized as I left the consultation room with Michael. Colleague at work said doctors exaggerate, so there's no point in listening. When I heard Michael say that as we sat on the waiting room sofa, I really thought it might be hopeless. He wouldn't understand my situation even after seeing it. Even when explained by the doctor, Michael wouldn't listen. He blindly believed in the words of some unknown person at work, insisting on what suited him best. Could such a man really be a good father to our child? Moreover, was it even safe to be near Michael during childbirth and child-rearing? I had wanted to go back to my parents' home for the birth, but it was impractical. My younger brother and his family were living with my parents, and their home was too far away. Plus, I needed to look for a daycare here. Considering everything, it seemed best to give birth here. I'm going out for a while. I'll be back by dinner, Michael said as we left the hospital, leaving me alone. In other words, he expected me to prepare dinner. I wished he would eat out instead. It seemed that nothing the doctor said stayed in his head. After that, Michael didn't change. He demanded, buy beer, and iron all my shirts, showing no empathy at all. He even started yelling at me for being useless when I couldn't do the housework. Despite the ongoing severe morning sickness, feeling the baby's movements was my only solace. The baby inside me is growing healthily. I must protect it at all costs. The Saturday after my prenatal checkup, I was home alone, lying on the sofa. Michael had gone out to meet his college friends and said he would return late after drinking. It was easier without Michael around. I didn't have to deal with the hassle. I just wanted to relax and take care of myself when alone. That's what I had been thinking. Still sleeping? In the evening, suddenly Michael returned home. Weren't you going out drinking? Some guy left because his kid got sick, then the others started saying they needed to be home for dinner or to bathe their kids. Pathetic, like slaves to their wives. It seemed he was the only one who wanted to keep drinking. Frustrated that things didn't go his way, Michael was in a foul mood. So why haven't you made dinner? You said you'd be out drinking. If you were coming home, you should have told me. Don't be so whiny. Michael, venting his irritation at me, shouted and stomped around to the back of the sofa. Incredibly, he started kicking my back as if trying to knock me off the sofa while I was lying down. Stop it, I cried. Pregnancy and morning sickness aren't illnesses. Stop slacking, you useless wife. He continued to kick my curled-up back, which was instinctively protecting my belly. If I fell from the sofa, my belly would hit the floor. If I turned, his kicks might hit my belly directly. In a panic, all I could do was clutch my belly. I must protect this child at all costs. At that moment, that's when the doorbell rang repeatedly. It wasn't just the entrance to the building but our apartment door. Startled, Michael went to check the intercom. I seized the opportunity to rush to the front door, ignoring the pain in my back. Hey, Emily! Michael, focused only on the monitor, seemed not to notice that I had moved. From behind, he called out my name in a panicked tone. I unlocked the door with trembling hands and flung it open. I had a guess about who might be there. Emily! Are you okay? Jennifer, please help me! Jennifer. Michael muttered in shock behind me. And for good reason. Standing at the opened front door was Jennifer. After all, she was Michael's boss. I had met Jennifer about 2 months ago. While shopping at a nearby supermarket, I suddenly became so unwell that I couldn't move. I was unable to move a single step, fearing a blackout from anemia. Just then, Jennifer approached and said, "Are you okay? I'll support you. Let's move slowly to a seat where you can sit down." She firmly grasped my shoulder to help. She was a lifesaver. If it weren't for her, I might have passed out right there. The person who helped me at that time was Jennifer. I also had terrible anemia during my pregnancy. Jennifer, who had taken me to the nearest bench sofa, stayed by my side until I recovered. When I finally managed to thank her, she responded with a smile, saying those words. Jennifer must be in her 40s, I guess. She mentioned her high school-aged son was in a dormitory nearby. As a more experienced mother, I wanted to express my gratitude properly and asked for her contact information. That's how my interaction with Jennifer began. She and I bonded over our shared experience as soccer team managers in high school and eventually discovered she was Michael's boss. Jennifer had been concerned about my health, occasionally bringing me fruits I could eat. She had been visiting our home several times. Michael didn't know about this. This was because Jennifer had asked to keep our meetings quiet from Michael. Lately, Michael's behavior has been unacceptable. He's been influenced by this guy at work, disrespecting female colleagues. Are you okay, Emily? Jennifer had guessed that if Michael found out about our friendship, he would probably persuade me not to meet her again. She thought he would panic if he knew his boss was aware of his behavior towards me. But I had already told her everything. That's why Jennifer had said, "I'll help you anytime," and I had kept that in mind, thinking I could rely on her if things got too difficult. What happened just now? Jennifer asked as we sat on the sofa. She was supposed to visit me for dinner, and we were on the phone when Michael returned, so she heard his verbal abuse. Moreover, when Michael returned home, Jennifer and I were on a call, so she could hear Michael's verbal abuse and behavior, even though it was only through audio. He kicked me while I was lying down. That's not true, Michael interjected. I couldn't believe he had the audacity to say that's not true. I couldn't forgive him anymore. He kicked me several times. I mean, it's not like that. As I didn't back down, and under the stern gaze of Jennifer, Michael's words started to falter. In response, Jennifer calmly delivered her message. I warned you before, Michael. If your behavior didn't change, you'd be removed from our project. Your conduct towards female colleagues and your pregnant wife doesn't align with developing toys for children. Please, wait. You're not suitable for this project, as a father, a husband, or a person. You're off the project. No, please, spare me from that. Suddenly, Michael slid down to kneel at Jennifer's feet. I had never seen him like this before. Even though he was in the wrong, he stubbornly said, no. It was pitiful to see how he didn't care about appearances. My disillusionment with Michael intensified in these few minutes. I won't do it again. I promise to bring good ideas. The decision is final. No retraction. Jennifer replied unswervingly. Michael is rubbing his forehead on the floor while uttering irrelevant excuses. I also thought that it's no wonder he was removed from the project. According to what Jennifer told me before, the toy project she leads is a major project planned to develop over several years, and achieving results in it could mean recognition from the company. Being chosen for this project signals high expectations within the company, so many people want to participate to boost their career prospects. Michael, about 2 years ago, was directly under Jennifer from the project's inception and had delivered results in previous product developments, so he was a member from the start. However, Jennifer mentioned that about a year ago, after getting close to a senior colleague, Michael seemed to be influenced negatively. His behavior changed, starting to make disrespectful remarks about women, causing resentment. He also began taking credit for the ideas of his female colleagues and was on track to be removed from the project during discussions with the subleaders. It's outright domestic violence towards Emily. It's dangerous, so I'll protect her. What are you saying? That's not okay. Michael retorted in panic at Jennifer's words. Despite always finding her bothersome, he seems to be worried about losing someone to take care of the house. Emily, you've got your stuff packed, right? Yes, somewhat, so I'm ready for whenever the baby comes. That's not okay. I'll report this as kidnapping to the police. Michael kept barking while following us as we walked away with our luggage. Maybe he thinks mentioning the police will make us stop. I'd rather you call them right now. I'll just tell them I protected her because her husband kicked her. I'm sorry. Please rethink this, Jennifer. Michael frantically followed us to the entrance. But I knew he wouldn't chase us outside. A man as vain as Michael wouldn't do something so undignified. So once we're out the door, we're free. I'll behave. I won't do it again. It's okay. So please don't remove me. As expected, Michael was groveling in the hallway while we put on our shoes. He didn't chase us outside or show any remorse for his actions towards me, just desperately begging his boss for self-preservation. Pathetic. I never knew he was this kind of person. Michael fell silent as I opened the front door with a click. I'm getting a divorce. I'll hire a lawyer. I just said that with closing the front door. Michael was looking at me, his face twisted. I locked the door from the outside and started walking with Jennifer. After leaving the house, I ended up staying at Jennifer's place. She and her husband live in a house with spare rooms, as it's just the two of them, so they kindly offered me a place. However, being pregnant and needing to think about postpartum life, I needed to establish a stable living situation quickly. I started looking for a room I could move into right away, preferably near the hospital where I planned to give birth, to prepare the best environment for it. Jennifer and her husband even offered to help with the move. I really can't thank them enough. Meanwhile, Michael insists that he will absolutely not divorce. I've been avoiding his calls to leave a paper trail and have been communicating in writing, but he keeps sending lengthy, self-centered messages. If we divorce, it'll look bad. If everyone knows we're a happy couple, it'll improve my image, so I absolutely won't divorce. Apologize to Jennifer for admitting you were wrong, make it right so I can get back on the project. It's your fault. My colleague is also angry, so apologize to him too. To be honest, I couldn't understand the meaning behind what he was saying. Was he really serious? I couldn't comprehend why he had such thoughts. In any case, Michael was desperate. That's because Jennifer immediately informed the project members about removing Michael as soon as she returned home that day. This meant being excluded from the career path and was humiliating for Michael, who had been boasting about his competence. Furthermore, the reasons for his removal included behaviors that could be categorized as harassment towards female project members, domestic violence against his wife, and his frequent inability to judge right from wrong. These reasons had spread quickly, and Michael had garnered a terrible reputation. Originally, Michael had boasted everywhere that he was selected for the project because he was a rising star. However, his actions were far from those of a rising star, and everyone understood that. Therefore, the reactions from employees outside the project were more like "I knew it and serves you right." Michael may want to redeem himself somehow, but it's probably futile. I had no obligation to listen to Michael's incomprehensible arguments. It might be better to proceed with divorce mediation sooner rather than later. I need to find a lawyer and get things moving quickly. While staying at Jennifer's house, helping with house hunting and arranging for a lawyer. The doorbell rang at Jennifer's house. Jennifer went to check the outside camera and muttered them. Could it be Michael? Jennifer. It's okay. Just wait a moment. Jennifer left me in the living room, where we were working together, and stepped outside. I heard the front door open and then close. After a while, the door burst open again, accompanied by several loud voices. The first to enter was a man I didn't recognize. Michael and Jennifer followed by. This the wife? Yes. Don't move any further. I'll call the police for trespassing. Upon Jennifer's words, phone in hand, the two men stopped dead in their tracks. They had evidently forced their way in. It's okay, Jennifer. We just came to talk. The stranger said with raising his hands. He was about Michael's age and had a smug, unpleasant grin. He was grinning and freaked out. Listen to what he has to say. Emily. I realized this must be the senior colleague Michael often mentioned. The man cleared his throat exaggeratedly before beginning to speak. First off, a wife should fully support her husband. You can't just slack off using excuses like feeling sick or morning sickness. Understand? He started lecturing me eventually. Just like Michael, nonsensical. If you don't take care of yourself and serve your husband, you'll be left. Women need men to survive, so you better work hard not to be abandoned. And yet you defy your husband? You're greatly mistaken. You better apologize to Michael and make up. I was horrified at his antiquated thinking. We were on completely different wavelengths. There's no way we could have a reasonable conversation. I felt paralyzed, as if encountering something unfathomable. You're lucky your wife hasn't left you. My wife knows her place. Jennifer, you're too bossy for a woman, always interfering. They started arguing. Jennifer's ability to respond logically and calmly was impressive. I admired her capability. Even though it might be misplaced in this situation. It's hard to take seriously someone who barges into another's home so rudely. We said we're visiting, didn't we? You accessed our address through company records, didn't you? Threatened someone? That's against the rules, accessing personal information. It's not like that. Michael can't do anything alone, so he brought backup to try and force his way. Michael stiffened when Jennifer pointed out suddenly. Two men teaming up to trespass without an appointment, trying to coerce by sheer force. It's true what they say, the weaker the dog, the louder its bark. Jennifer snorted through her nose with a smirk. Her clearly provocative words made me more worried. Despite being in a position of power, she was facing two men. Excuse me? Is that all you got to say? Cowards should run away before they get reported, Jennifer challenged them. What? Michael and the senior colleague visibly lost their temper. Just then, the door behind them burst open with a loud crash. Everyone froze, shocked by the sound and force. It was at the back of the living room. Who was standing there was Jennifer's husband. A towering figure over 6.6 feet tall and weighing over 200 pounds, muscular and imposing. Only his mouth was visible above the doorframe. As he slowly moved and bent down to pass under the frame into the living room, Michael stumbled and fell on his behind. He looked up at Jennifer's husband with unfocused eyes, trembling and foaming at the mouth. Ah! Michael and the senior scrambled out of the room, shouting and rolling over each other. They eventually left the house, and all was silent. Jennifer, don't provoke them too much. It's dangerous. They're not as tough as they talk, and I knew you'd come to help. Even so, you never know. Okay. Jennifer and her husband had a great relationship. He was a former football player with enough talent to be considered for corporate teams. His physique is impressive and matches his background, making him look very intimidating. However, in reality, he is incredibly kind and has a great sense of humor. He's always full of consideration for Jennifer, and it's evident that she trusts her husband deeply. Last night, watching them eat dinner together, I thought they were such a wonderful couple. In the end, I stayed at Jennifer's house for 3 nights. I feel like I've become even closer to Jennifer. She seems like a real sister to me, or even like a best friend I've had for a long time. We hurriedly decided on a new place to move into, and while Michael was at work, I moved my belongings with Jennifer's help. The people who helped me at that time were Jennifer's husband's football friends. Some of them worked for moving companies, and they were introduced to me. With their availability and willingness to help, the move was done easily and at a low cost. Later, Jennifer told me about Michael and his colleague. They had threatened someone in HR to get her personal information, causing a big issue at the company. Already unpopular, their reputation plummeted. I heard that Michael and that man, having tarnished their reputations, were not only shunned by the project team members but also couldn't even get proper greetings from other employees at the company. They tried spreading false rumors about Jennifer, but it only led to more disdain. The issues were dealt with severely at the company, resulting in pay cuts, demotions, and transfers for both. Feeling uncomfortable at the company, both resigned. Regarding Michael, his domestic violence and punishment at work reached his parents, especially infuriating his FIL, who disowned him. Unable to afford the apartment planned for 2 incomes and unable to return home, Michael moved in with that guy, who lives with his wife and baby. This led to his wife reaching her limit. Despite being treated poorly before, his wife left him after he brought Michael, a jobless stranger, to live in their house without her consent. The situation escalated into a major fight between 2 of them, leading to Michael being kicked out quickly. Alone and desperate, Michael started job hunting, but due to his skewed perceptions, he continued to face rejections. The divorce process was initiated with a lawyer, and the settlement was finalized through mediation. Michael kept insisting he wouldn't divorce, but the evidence of his verbal and physical abuse and his extreme beliefs led to the mediator's conclusion that going to court wouldn't change the outcome. We agreed on a settlement for mental anguish, child support, and division of property, with everything legally documented. Michael's parents promised to take responsibility for him despite disowning him, ensuring he would pay the agreed amounts once he found an employment. Since it's been made clear that his wages would be garnished if necessary, he'd likely want to avoid the dishonor of that happening at his workplace, so he should make the payments as agreed. After the divorce, Michael once showed up at my new apartment. He might have learned my address from the mediation documents and ambushed me at the entrance. However, a friend of Jennifer's husband, a large man, happened to live in the same building and accompanied me home from shopping, encountering Michael. Frightened, Michael hurried away and never approached me again. Probably, a friend of Jennifer's husband was also a large man, which I believe intimidated Michael. Michael remained pitiful until the end. Later, I gave birth to a daughter and returned to work after maternity leave. Working in a cosmetics company with many female and single employees, I found a supportive environment for balancing work and motherhood. About 5 years after my daughter's birth, my product line received high praise, becoming a hit and leading to my promotion. Considering my daughter's future, the pay raise was welcome, and I was determined to work harder when Michael suddenly called. I received a call on my smartphone from an unknown number, thinking it might be work-related, but it was Michael. "I heard you got promoted. Let's meet up, I'll consider remarrying you," he said as soon as I answered. His attitude was as unreasonable and condescending as ever. "Excuse me? So, return the alimony and child support. You should be grateful I'm offering to remarry you." Disappointed that he hadn't changed at all. Even if he had shown remorse, there would be no chance of remarrying, but it's astonishing how little he has changed. I switched the call to video. And I handed the phone to my current husband. "What? What do you want with Emily?" "What? Hey, Emily! Who are you? What the? Don't mess with me!" Michael stammered in a trembling voice before the call abruptly ended. I quickly set my smartphone to block the number that had just called. "Thank you." He seemed really scared, didn't he? Is he okay? My current husband, the person who lived in the same apartment complex as me when I got divorced, was the friend of Jennifer's husband I met back then. He's even bigger and more intimidating in appearance than Jennifer's husband. But he's also incredibly kind and always prioritizes me and our daughter. "Emily, you have a prenatal checkup tomorrow, right? I'll come too." "Really? Then it's a family outing." "Yeah." Our daughter, busy drawing at the dining table, cheered. We both headed into the kitchen to hurry with dinner preparations. "Time to clean up for dinner, please." "Can you do it yourself?" "I can. I'm going to be a big sister." Our daughter enthusiastically started tidying up. Indeed, there's a new life growing inside me. This time, the morning sickness was mild and vanished as I entered the stable phase of pregnancy, making me wonder if the severe sickness last time was partly due to stress. "Mommy, will we see the baby tomorrow?" "Yes, we will. Let's ask to see the baby on the tummy camera again." "Daddy's coming too?" "Yes, he is." Haha. Our daughter giggled happily. Her smile always fills me with joy. She is undoubtedly the treasure of our family. and were eagerly awaiting the arrival of another precious edition.